A lot of times it's people do it because they want to feel loved, like they do it because then they think that people will reciprocate. And when they don't, then that's when they feel a little disappointed or let down because they feel like I've done so much for this person or I've done so much for my family or whatever. And I just don't feel like it's coming back to me.
Welcome to The Way of the Muse, a podcast for women who want to create richness in every area of their lives, from business and career to lifestyle, relationships, family, purpose, and fulfillment. I'm Gigi Sage.
And I'm Makena Sage. We're a mother-daughter coaching team, and combined, we've spent over 4 decades helping people create their best and most fully expressed lives. If you're ready to step into your bigger dreams with ease, fun, and flow, you're in the right place. Let's get into the episode.
Hello, everyone. Happy belated Thanksgiving to all of you in the U.S.
Hello.
We are recording this episode leading up to Thanksgiving so we can have a nice holiday break. Gigi and I are going to be seeing each other in Nashville.
Yeah, can't wait. Going to visit Brianna, yeah?
Yeah, one of my sisters lives in Nashville, so we're going to spend the holiday there with we're bringing our dog Chloe, and it's going to be lots of doggies and my husband, and it's going to be super, super fun. So we hope you all had a fabulous Thanksgiving and everyone else in the world a great last week of November. So today we
move more into Christmas and everything, right? So the festive times.
Yeah, absolutely. Or whatever holidays you celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
Today we want to talk about a topic that came up in a coaching session recently. And Gigi and I were both on the session with a client, and I was taking notes, and I thought, well, this would be a great topic for the podcast, which is people pleasing. A lot of people say, I struggle with this. People pleasing is something that I do, and I don't know how to shift it. And so we want to share some things that have worked for us or worked for our clients, and support you with this important topic. So what do you see, Gigi, around people who do a lot of what they call people pleasing, right? Like doing for others all the time, maybe at the expense of themselves, or just feeling like they have to say yes to everybody else when they ask for things. What's usually going on here? Tell me a little bit about this.
Well, I think you should share also what you observe because you've worked with a lot of people. But often I see resentment underneath, they feel frustrated and unheard. I think that's the other thing. I think there's resentment and people feel unheard because they feel like they can't say anything. What about you? What have you experienced? Like when you saw it with clients, what have you seen?
There's definitely this feeling of, I do all this stuff for everybody else, and sort of like I'm not taking care of myself first, which is something we talk a lot about on the podcast, is the importance of caring for yourself first or putting yourself first. And it's often a pattern. And the main thing about people pleasing is it's a pattern. Somewhere along the way when you were young, it was helpful, right? It got you attention, or it helped you maybe feel more connected to your parents or whoever it was, or feel loved. And so it's not to make that wrong. Yeah. But it is to be aware of it. And then it is to really see, do you want to shift this? Because you have to want to shift it to really make a change. And that's true of anything. But often there's something that people get out of people pleasing too. So there's the part that, of course, it doesn't feel good in one way, but there's also that there's something you get from it. Otherwise you wouldn't keep doing it. So that's really important to look at.
Yeah. And I think I see a lot of times it's people do it because they want to feel loved, like they do it because then they think that people will reciprocate. I see if I can say the word there. And when they don't, then that's when they feel a little disappointed or let down because they feel like I've done so much for this person or I've done so much for my family or whatever. And I just don't feel like it's coming back to me. And that's where, it's often done, I think, because we want to feel loved or appreciated.
I think a lot of times we want people to notice, that we've done these things and, maybe to feel more connected to them. So it's really important to look at, what do you get out of it? Because then you can really take a look and see, is there another way you could get that? Or is it something you're really willing to make a shift in? And so one of our clients, we were on a call recently, and she really saw she's in this phase of her life where her kids are grown, and she, really wanted to make a change in the people pleasing department, or, in her case, maybe it's not just people pleasing, but it's just putting everybody else ahead of herself, right? Like doing all these things for the family, doing all these things in her relationship and other people in her life as well. And in that, though, when we talked, she really saw that, there was a part of her that had chosen to do those things. She really took responsibility for that and was like, I made that choice, and that was really empowering for her to see, is also taking ownership of that you're choosing to do that on some sense. And maybe it's an unconscious choice, or, it is just something you've always kind of done. But if you've chosen to do it up to now, you can actually choose something different. And we'll talk more about that.
And so what did she see, McKenna, how she wanted to change that when she noticed it, when she chose it?
The main thing is she just saw she was ready to make a different choice. Not that she didn't want to do things for the people in her life, but that she wanted to choose more consciously the things she did want to do, let's say for her family or her partner or friends. So she could really walk through and go, okay, maybe even write down. I don't think we did this in that particular call, but you could write down, what are all the things I end up doing for other people, right? All the ways I end up people pleasing or going out of my way for other people. And then really go, what do I want to do here? What do I really feel good about? Because some of these things feel good to do for other people. I think you say that, Gigi, is that often there's a component of people want to do for other people. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I think it's making that distinction too, is what do you want to do for people? And if you want to do it for them, then to shift also the attitude for coming from this place of wanting to do it. And if you don't want to do it, then choosing that, somehow it depends, if you have to, then the same things, a lot of times it's by changing how you approach it. Right. But I think it's so important to see, because a lot of times people want to do things for people. And for me, I'm very much of a service person. I love being in service to people. And so when I choose consciously how I'm in service, it brings joy to me. I actually love it. It's some things that some people would say, people ask me sometimes, why do you do that? And I think, I do it because it's something I enjoy doing. I really, really love doing it. What gets in the way is when you start doing things that you don't want to do, or you do things that bring you joy. And then if you don't get appreciated, then sometimes that's where we get resentful, and then we make it a chore.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so much here. Like we could unpack, go back through some of the things we've already said, which is, what do you get out of it, right? And not to make that wrong either. Like if you really enjoy, like you said, you get joy from it, that's one thing. If you're doing it to get people to appreciate you or love you more, or, whatever that might be, then that's maybe to take a look at and go, okay, maybe that's not the healthiest or the best reason to do it. Do the things that actually do bring you joy, that you enjoy doing just for the sake of doing them, even if they didn't appreciate it, right? Or of course they appreciate it on some level, but even if they didn't verbally say it or they didn't do something back, that's a healthy level of giving to others or pleasing others. And it's even to take the language of, I hear people use terms like these that have become very common or very said, in the popular culture. And people pleasing is one of them. And that sort of, it puts a negative slant on something that for some people, it's not all negative either, like you're saying.
Yeah.
There might be a really healthy side to that, which is like you put it so beautifully, Gigi. I'm a service person. I enjoy giving to others. As long as you're giving to others from a healthy place, from you're taking care of yourself, and you
without expectation. Without expectation. Because that's what gets in the way, is when we do something, because then we project people are like us, right? So, and believe me, I've had that many times. I'm in service to people, and unconsciously, I don't realize like I have some kind of expectation, but I think, oh, well, why wouldn't they do the same? Right. And that is just not a healthy way to do it, because everybody's different. And when I go into it with an expectation, that takes the joy right out of it, because I'm waiting for someone to do something for me.
Yeah. And a barometer for that, a way of checking that might be to tune in and go, do I feel frustration? Do I feel resentment when I'm doing these things? Or do I feel joy? Is it actually feeding my batteries and making, increasing my joy meter, so to speak? Or is it draining me and making me feel frustrated? And sometimes people will pendulum swing the other way as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Because people go, oh, I've been giving to other people. I don't want to do that anymore.
What I see there is sometimes people start being really rude. They go, no, I can't do that. Or it's just like when you hear people talk about boundaries, and they start setting boundaries, and then they start being, no, I'm not going to do that. Or no, I'm not going to cross my boundaries. Same thing with people pleasing. Instead of, coming from a place of, again, like we're talking about, what is it I want to do? What does I not want to do? And then really having a conversation and just saying, listen, I don't want to do this anymore. And you don't need to be really rude about it. Just say, that is something, let's see how we can get that handled without me having to do that. And I think that's with our clients, what we do is get them really clear on what do they want to do and what do they don't want to do. And then again, set up systems on how to make that change.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? Otherwise, it's this thing of people, like you're saying, they start getting, like you called it a little rude. They start getting very abrupt with their loved ones, or kind of prissy, or I don't know how else to describe it. And just, oh, no, I'm not going to do that, or I don't do that anymore, or I'm taking care of me first, or whatever that would be. Versus, like you're saying, the other alternative there is to really be clear on, hey, here's what I'm available for, and be in communication about that. And here's what I'm not really available for. And to your point, Gigi, if it's something you've been doing a long time and you suddenly make the switch with your loved ones, it's going to be a big switch for them, right? Yeah. They're going to be like, what? You've basically developed, you've had a role in this. You've helped develop a pattern that, let's say it's a child of yours and they're used to you doing certain things and behaving in certain ways. That's a pattern you guys have in your dynamic. And then if you suddenly change that and you go, I'm not going to do that anymore, then they're going to be like, what is going on? And of course, there's going to be some pushback. So that's where I think a lot of times breakdowns happen, when people start to make these changes, versus really being in there and seeing, okay, what is the need that I was filling before that's not going to be met anymore? And like you shared, what's a system we could put in place, or how can we approach this differently? So you're on a team with your loved one. You're not just leaving them hanging high and dry and changing everything overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we've done this with different clients, there's a couple stories we wanted to share around that. So with one client, we had that they were, family members were coming and asking for money for different things. Do you want to share a little bit about what we did there?
Yeah. So finally, we had that client really look and see, how did she want to contribute financially to different members that were coming to her? Because before, she was really giving a lot of money and taking care of a lot of things. And so we had her see what was she willing to do? What did she want to do? And she got super clear about, where she wanted to give and where she didn't, and where she wanted to stop completely. And she just went in and had those conversations, and they were a little uncomfortable, but it freed her up so much, because she no longer, first of all, had those energy leaks that she was feeling like frustrated because she felt a little taken advantage of. And the other thing was the financial leaks. She got to see where she wanted to use particular money for different things. And she just really went in and cleared up all of these different areas. And it just strengthened her so much in terms of her feeling, empowered in her life, and it gave her a skill set to now where when she has people come to her or she's trying to make a decision about how she wants to not only give financially, but also her time. Now she thinks it through really, really clearly about exactly what she wants to do. And then she goes to the person and tells them, this is what I'll do. Instead of, and this is a lot of times as people come to you and say, this is what I want. And then we feel like we have to bend ourselves out of shape in order to do what they want to do. And this is where owning and getting super clear about what you're willing to do, what you want to do, it takes all that frustration out and it stops the resentment as well, because you're in the driver's seat basically in your life then.
Yeah. And in this case, but also in many other cases of people pleasing, sometimes the people who are asking for whatever it is, it could be money, it could be time, it could be something else altogether, might make you feel a little guilty, right? Whether that's consciously or unconsciously. Yeah. But there's this thing of using maybe a story or making or bringing up something that might be true, but kind of in such a way that it sparks guilt for you. And then you feel like, oh, I have to do this, or if I don't do this, I'm a bad person. And so what we're talking about here is really getting clear in advance. If you know that those kinds of things come up with certain people in your life or certain dynamics, really getting clear in advance on what do you want to do here? What do you want to give? What feels like good for you? It feels like enough. Or do you not want to give anything? I mean, it just depends on the dynamic completely, right? And then having that conversation with the person and then knowing that they may still try to come and say those same kinds of things or different, make you feel a little guilty, and you'll have to sit with that a little bit, but stick to your guns in terms of what feels really right for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there anything else you see around that, or did that cover that?
That's good. Yeah.
So one other scenario I see a lot with people pleasing is people who maybe they're that person that everyone goes to because they know they can ask them for favors, or they're always there to help or pitch in a helping hand. And so everyone asks, or they have friends that ask, family members that ask, and that person often says yes. But then again, frustration's building or resentment's building, or they're just tired, they're overextended. What would you say to that person other than what we've covered already today?
I would say you have to step back and see what you want, because in those situations, I find that it's often people who maybe have more time, and it's kind of become known that they're the person to go to because they are willing to do it, just because they don't have their thing, right? And they're not taking that time for whatever they want to do. And so it just becomes this bad habit of saying yes, but it's a little bit of distraction of them actually taking the time to sit down and really see, how do they want to be spending their time? What is important to them? What do they need to do for themselves? And how do they want to spend their next year? Not how do they want to spend their next year doing all the different things for everyone else. It comes back to what we say about everything is looking to see, what do you want, and that you come first. And when you do this, and then you have a clear, grounded feeling in that, then you can't be pushed and pulled all over the place. You choose very wisely about the activities or the ways you want to be in service or the way you want to give that are in, first of all, alignment to your values. And second of all, alignment to the time you have allotted to be in service or help or support. And that's a systems issue there. So they have to create the structure for it. And it takes a little time to sit back and reflect and see what that is, and then work forward from that.
Yeah. I was just looking back to see if we had any podcast episodes that could help with that. We have Your Greatest Gifts, Discover and Own Your Superpowers. That was episode 21. We can link to those in the show notes. That's really nice to kind of really get in and see if you're not sure how you want to be spending your time, or kind of what your focus or purpose might be. We also have What's Next, getting clear on your direction. And that was episode 17. And I think the last one I would say is become the woman you're meant to be, confidently create your biggest dreams. That was way back in episode 5. So those might be some interesting ones if you do find yourself in that position where, and of course, everyone's busy and everyone has things to do. It's not that we're saying you have nothing to do. It's just really looking at sort of what do you want to put your energy into? When you have things going on and you're excited about in your life and you're going for it, then people will naturally not be reaching out all the time. Or if they do, then you've got something going on and you go, well, I'd love to, but I've got this going on. So that's a really great perspective there. Another way of thinking about it.
And I mean, I think it's super important it depends on where you are in your life. Are you retired, or are it because you're doing a lot of charity, or is it because your family requires a lot? But again, you have to finally go, what is the amount of time that I have that doesn't completely, uprail my life, right? And then that's the time you have. And then you choose wisely. First of all, like we talked about, where's the joy where you want to give? If it's your family, where's it you really want to be in service, or you really feel the person needs support? And for you want to be there and really be supportive. And then the other thing, if it's somebody you're in business and you're busy, it's where's it in alignment with your values and the way you want to give back and be of service. And then a lot of times too, the other thing is, where does it also grow you and serve you in your business or your life or whatever? That's another way to look at it as well.
Yeah, great question. Someone asked years ago that has stuck with me. And this is more in the sense of how do you want to get back in the world and things like that. But when you're feeling overwhelmed with all the different ways you feel like you could give or should give, and this could be true in your relationships as well, is a great question is, what is mine to do? What is mine to do? Or to your point, Gigi, what do I want to do? So between those two questions, I think you can really find like that's kind of like what's in alignment with my values, or what do I really feel called to? And one other thing I see with people pleasing is that there's often a fear maybe, or a desire to avoid conflict or confrontation.
Yeah.
And that may be why the people pleasing is happening. It's like you don't want to say no because you are worried that people are going to get mad, or they're going to not want to be connected to you, or, whatever that is. And that's really important to make conscious and go, what is it I'm afraid of here? If I do say no, or if I do say I'm not available for that, what do I think might happen? And in some cases it might be, I think they're just going to get upset with me. In some cases you might think people would cut off the relationship or blow up or something much more, dramatic. And to really walk that through, and go, okay, and maybe that's not a healthy dynamic in the first place if that's true, or maybe they would get mad and they would just come back and you'd be fine after that. So being worried about the conflict isn't enough of a reason to go past your own, what feels right for you again and again, because it's just not the foundation of a healthy dynamic over time.
Yeah. And again, the way you approach that is saying, I love you. And, I feel I've really been supporting, and I'm just in a position in my life right now, I can't do that. And so you don't go, I'm not going to do that anymore. Right. So, and again, the way you approach it is huge, and they still may get mad and upset, but at least you come from a place of kindness and a place of acknowledgement, and not one, just like we talked about, of just kind of being abrupt about the situation.
Yeah. And I would really recommend the episode Harmony at Home to learn more about the skill of acknowledgement before you go in and have these conversations. Because in that episode,
looking at a list? How do you remember
I
all
was
those?
Before. I'm not now. That one's off the top of my head.
I'm like, wow, we did a podcast on that. Wow.
They start to all blend together after a while in our minds. I was earlier. I was like, let me look at the list and see what might be helpful. But this one, Harmony at Home, is about conflict and having more harmony in your relationships. And we do talk about the skill of acknowledgement in there. And that's something I did want to say is that, or you mentioned there, Gigi, is that when they come to this kind of conversation, if they have the tool of acknowledgement first, then that can bridge something. Because otherwise, if you go in saying, oh, I've been doing all of this and I'm not going to do it anymore, I'd like to do it this way. Even if you bring it in a very respectful way, people can get defensive and be like, well, I didn't tell you that you needed to do this, or, you just always, and I do all this for you, right? So they start bringing all those things up. But if you do go in really acknowledging first, and we talk about how to do that in that episode, then that can create a bridge to have the more challenging conversations.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So excellent. One last thing we wanted to touch on here is how people can approach this. So let's say you have a dynamic that's a recurring dynamic of you doing a lot of things for other people. And where we see this sometimes is with families, especially where maybe the kids are grown now. And, let's say the parents want to go, they're all going to go on a family trip. And in the past, everybody just expected you to do everything, right? So you plan the trip, you look up everything, everybody else pretty much just shows up. How could someone approach this differently, Gigi?
How do you see what could they do there?
The biggest thing is to get everybody involved and really make a request there of what you would love. So like we said before, in terms of getting clear on what you do want to do, and then inviting and involving everybody else. And that could be done in different ways. You could kind of think through, okay, what are all the different components of planning this trip that you normally take on? And then make a list of those and put a little mark next to the ones that you're like, I enjoy doing that, or I'd like to do that. And then the ones that you don't, then you call a family meeting. That could be over Zoom if it needs to be, if you're not all close together, and you just say, hey, we all want to take this trip, super excited about it. Normally in the past, I've done a lot of the planning. I've taken a lot of this on. I'm really seeing I'd love to approach that differently this time and get everybody involved. And I think it could be really fun. And so here's some things that I would really love to get your support with. Here's what I'd love to take on. And then I made a list. Here's the other areas that normally I handle. And I'm curious, like who would like to volunteer to do this one, or what else do you guys see? What ideas do you have? And getting everybody involved in such a way that and if nobody is volunteering, then you might have to sort of volunteer other people. Everybody takes a vote who thinks this, someone should do this one or whatever. And that way, then they all get involved. And usually what we see is that people have fun with that, actually. They enjoy being involved in the planning process. And this is true. We've talked about this in some of our other episodes around leading teams and everything as well, is like people want to help a lot of the time, but they just they're not given the opportunity because you've been in there taking on all the different pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And you can say, here's a budget, and, and absolutely. That's a beautiful way. You can do that in your personal life. You can also do that in business. We have all these things to accomplish. Who wants to take on this, and this? And like you mentioned there, Makena, people are hesitant sometimes because they feel like they can't, or they're not going to do it the right way. They're not going to do it the way you expect it to be done. So you have to really open up and let other people take control. You can even make somebody else in charge of it, and they can come to you and bring things to you as they're doing them, and you can okay them.
Yeah. And there is some degree of not micromanaging here too, of like, it may not be done the way you would do it or to the degree you would do it. So if there is something that's really important to you, then you take that one on. Maybe you go, okay, no, it really is important to me that the restaurants be this and this way. Then you maybe are the ones researching the restaurants, for example. And then acknowledgement, right? Acknowledgement and appreciation for what they do that works.
Yeah.
How people are contributing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's great
call
to have
a family
meetings.
meeting. Go ahead.
Yeah. Call a family meeting and have come together and see, where you are in the project, and everybody gets acknowledged for what they're doing and appreciated. And then they just want to do it even more. And that makes for a fun trip. Then it's no longer about you having to do everything. It's really about everybody feels part of the process. And it makes it such a richer experience.
Yeah, we just did this. Sunny's parents were in town for about 10 days. And so as we did growing up, Gigi always called family team meetings, and then we would all do acknowledgments. We would all share what we wanted to be acknowledged for, what we were proud of, some way that we had contributed or shown up in a way that we were proud of. And so we did that with his parents while they were here a couple times. We would all be sitting in the kitchen making lunch or something like that. And I'd say, what does everybody want to be acknowledged for? And so his dad would say, I want to be acknowledged for this. And then we'd all clap and wildly clap for each other. And then we'd go to the next person. And Sunny and I do this in our relationship a lot as well. So it's something you could do even while you're on that vacation, is call everybody together and just let everyone share. What do they want to be acknowledged for that they did do to help contribute? And then everybody claps and gets a chance to be seen and witnessed.
Yeah. Nice.
Beautiful. Well, that's a few notes on people pleasing. So we do want to share that it's today, right? The day this episode is coming out is Black Friday. Yay! We're doing something we've never done before, which is doing some amazing, amazing Black Friday offers on bundles of different courses that we offer. And so be sure to go check those out. If you go to wayofthemuse.com/Black Friday, they'll be up for just a few days. And most of the bundles are about 70% off. So somewhere in the range of 70% off of bundles of our courses. This is something we've never done. I don't know if we'll ever do it again, but it's really an opportunity for you to get in there. And if you've been curious about working with us or taking a course with us, you can get several courses in one. We have smaller bundles and bigger bundles, and to support you on a lot of different levels. So check those out at wayofthemuse.com/Black Friday. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Holidays.
That's our episode for today, but let's not make it the end of our love story. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and think of some women in your life you'd love to share it with. And if you want to learn more about our events and programs, visit wayofthemuse.com. See you next time.